Welcome everybody. This is activities across grade levels. And today we're going to talk about building rapport. And rapport is one of those things that, you just, so much gets easier if you are paying attention to this. In the book I wrote about good teaching, I started with rapport because I just think that's a big whopping deal. But more on that anon. Let's start with some thanks. We like to start out with thanks because that just kind of sets a nice tone, builds good karma, and generally makes people smile. If it doesn't make you smile, maybe I can sing to you later or something. I actually probably wouldn't do it, but regardless, there's probably possibilities. To all of the good folks in Fowler Unified, this is Susan's team, and so all you guys who are joining us either right now or watching the recording, and coming up with ideas via the stuff that you're way cool, Susan, and I get to share. That sounds great to me. And also a lot of nice shout outs go to the teams up in Jerome in Idaho, a group that I do a lot of work with. And so I'm thinking about all you guys at Summit Elementary and Jerome High School and Fall City Academy. Glad to have you with us as well. Always like to give a shout out to Richard Byrne, who is not just a nice guy for sharing info about what we do. He and I do a program on Fridays called Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. And we have lots of fun things to share this time around as well. We get really good questions from teachers about what they're experiencing with online instruction and like, what's the fall going to look like? I mean, not necessarily easy questions, but we love the chance to talk about those things. And if Saturday you've got a little time, I hope you will join in for this one. So Tatiana Lagarde and I will do another one focused on parents. This one for online learning advice for middle school parents. So if you've got a middle schooler, interesting species of being that they would be, feel free to join in on that one, share some questions. We've got loads of things that we think will be valuable for you. So we hope to see you at that one as well. All of these things you can find via the link to our webinars page, which I will get boom in the chat right now. And those of you who registered and are watching it as a recording, you can always go to our webinars page to see exactly when and what is coming up. So time to meet us. If you are new to activities across grade levels, we are just jazzed to have you. And by we, I mean me and Susan. Susan, your turn, go.
Hello, my name is Susan Stewart. I am an instructional technology teacher on special assignment from Fresno, California. I work in Fowler Unified School District where I get to support 120 amazing teachers. And before I was a technology coach, I spent 14 years in kindergarten and second grade classrooms. So I come from the land of sunshine and rainbows. I teach kindergarten.
That's so awesome. I, of course, would quickly curl up in a ball if I were teaching kindergartners. On the other hand, my history is as a high school teacher. I was a high school teacher of Japanese language. Actually spent time as a middle school teacher of video production. Done some college level teaching, which is like all of the other levels combined in an interesting space. And then I became a principal and then a nonprofit guy, and I'm trying to save the world from ignorance one creative video at a time through nextvista.org. And I hope you will take a look at all the free stuff we have got on our site. And if you have questions about any of this material, whether it's videos about things you want to learn, or communities around the world, or service to others, or careers, or English language learners, by all means, get in touch, let me know. I would love to talk to you about the stuff that we got there. So what we're doing with these webinars is the idea is just keep the learning going, right? Just because the school's closed doesn't mean we can't inspire kids. And that's the truth. Sometimes like, oh, whatever we can do to just some minimum result. Look, we can inspire kids. We really can. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, for sure. But on the other hand, there are a lot of good things out there that a lot of teachers are beginning to look at and think, this could allow me to do some things I've never done before. I might be able to reach that kid I haven't reached before. This is how we're looking at things as we go. So what we'll do is we're going to talk about building rapport with a different set of tools and techniques and ideas. And we're going to start with our youngest learners, our K2. Then we'll move up to upper elementary and then middle and then high school. But our belief is that no matter what level you teach, you're going to get ideas from watching all of these. And I think that's one of the marks of the healthiest kind of school district, when people are like, hey, I teach AP Chem, but man, do I get a lot of good ideas from those kindergarten teachers. Yes, that's the way it ought to be. So with that, let's start with the young learners. And I've talked enough. Susan, it's on you now. Give us some cool ideas. and feel free to unmute.
I know what I'm doing, I swear. that idea of the young learners and the conversations. I run some professional development in my district where I involve the kindergarten teachers and the high school science teachers. And when they start having those powerful conversations about, oh, that's what it looks like, you know, the foundations that are set in the primary grades, we set up these foundations and they see that evolution, that vertical articulation of what's going on. It's always good to make sure that we meet with our people that are like-minded, but also having opportunities to see people across the grade levels. It really does give perspective for where they're coming from and where they need to go. So I love it. So talking about young learners and building rapport, learn their names. And when I say that, you know, I teach in a very Hispanic community. And a couple years ago, I had a student, his name was Cuauhtemoc. And it was just like that, Cuauhtemoc. And it was Cuathamac. And it looked like Cuauhtemoc. But when you didn't say it correctly, he was empowered with the ability to tell you, excuse me, my name is Cuauhtemoc. And he would say it correctly. And he really did have an expectation. And I think that came from a family who said, make sure people know how to say your name correctly. And it really did kind of shift for a while. In the beginning, my mindset was like, how annoying is this? But you know, there's so much power in someone's name, right? There's even like brain science research about what happens when someone says your name aloud and the little ding, ding, dings that happen in your brain, like even sometimes in comatose people, when you hear your name said aloud, it's a connection, right? Your brain reacts. Science tells me that. So learning their names, learning how to say it correctly is so importantly, and saying it each day. Good morning, Rushton. Good morning, Deirdre. Good morning, Gregory. Saying those things just is a good way to start. It's such a little thing to say their names. Also, of course, just having morning meetings. Right now in remote learning, distance learning, whatever you're doing, it's fun to come in and connect and say hello and have some light time before the school starts. You know, everyone's in this different period. Everyone is doing things that are not what they're used to. Having that morning time or afternoon time, a designated time for just being social. They don't get recess anymore. So morning meetings for social and emotional check-ins, whether you're face-to-face or especially now that we're in this very unique time, it builds rapport because it lets them know that you care, that their feelings matter, that their connections with others matter. It's not just about come learn, learn, learn. I want you to have that whole experience. And so just taking the time to have those morning meetings. I also say just be silly and be you. I have a picture on the next slide I'll show, but be silly, be you. When we come in there, being as silly as possible, being you, putting on the silly hats, doing whatever it takes to connect. And then of course, embracing that potential. This is an example, a real life example of a kindergartner doing his math. But what's different here? These aren't Unifix cubes from my classroom bucket. These aren't those very, you know, iconic little plastic teddy bears that we expect in the classroom. This is his dinosaurs, right? This is this guy's dinosaur collection, and he used it. He brought in something from home to show that there. Same thing, my own son has like 180 little Hot Wheels. I think of all the math that we could do, groups of 10, counting by twos. Embrace that as teachers because that's a part of who they are. And so build a rapport by acknowledging and, you know, respecting and embracing what's around them, the world that they're coming from right now, because it's not the one we're used to, right? So again, that whole idea of be silly and be you on the next slide, it's a little thing, but it's a lot of fun. I'm talking to 5-year-olds. If I come in to a meeting of 5-year-olds and I've got a scuba gear on my head, you know, they're with me. And then I can just have fun with them. And that lets them know that, again, everything's different, but we're still in it together. And, you know, I'm here to not just entertain, but educate you, but be connected. So little things like that. It's not about the snap camera. It's about engaging and connecting with the learners. And again, the one on the left is my own daughter having her morning meeting with her teacher. Her teacher does such a great job of just spending those few minutes chatting, right? How'd you go? What's going on? Hey, your big brother, you said he wasn't feeling well. What's going on? Asking questions of kids and learning what's going on in their circumstances. My friend Jessie says that when teachers take the time to understand the circumstances of their students, like we unleash superpowers. When teachers take the time to understand the circumstances, what is going on in their life, we empower those kids to know that someone else cares and notices. So moving up just a little bit. And you know, those things we say, again, true for everyone. right? That's not just little ones. Now, the high school things might think it's funny if I come in with a pirate hat and say "er," but hey, let's do it, you know. Upper elementary, give them a voice. I really appreciate the voice that Flipgrid allows, right? When we give them a chance to speak, just hear what they have to say. One thing that happens there when I give them a voice is I oftentimes will hear a lot more when they hit record than when I ask them to type it out in a paragraph. Maybe I ask them a question about themselves and let them have their voice. They can tell their story a whole different way with Flipgrid. And then of course, share yourself. The whole Bitmoji thing. Bitmojis are powerful, and I know they're a little silly, and I know there are some teachers who are spending entirely too much time on Bitmojis and not teaching, but that's a whole nother conversation. But here's the thing, when I put that little Bitmoji right there, that's a part of me. I'm saying, you got this. It's not just a gold star. That's me on the page connecting, right? I love the power of the Bitmoji to make sure kids know, like, if it's me thinking or me pointing or me saying, you got this, it's still me, and it's another way to connect, but also giving them a window into me. This is an activity we often do in grades 3, 4, or 5 on the very first day of school. And it's a fun one. It's just a little template we do with Time Magazine. I got this one from Ryan O'Donnell. Creative Ed Tech has a bunch of these kinds of templates where you can just create and start. You just start from scratch, right? Here we are with this Time Magazine cover. And when you have kids write about themselves, I mean, that's a topic they're experts in. So they can write about something they know very well, but they can get a window, they can give you a window into who they are, what they value, what's important to them, but also make sure that when they do that, that you do yours too. They need that window back. It has to be two-way. I can ask questions about them, but when I say things, oh my gosh, Sheldon today, he chewed up my shoe. When I'm talking about my family, about my puppy, you know, it's that connection. It's letting them know that we're humans outside of just being teacher and student, that connection piece, right? I have 3 kids. I love coffee, and my puppy loves to chew on my things. It's a great way to connect. The next slide shows an example of that Flipgrid, and this just carries that idea of embracing their home environment. We did Furry Friend Friday recently, and it was such a silly little thing. That's my daughter in the upper right-hand corner. But what the students were able to do, again, we wanted them to talk about something. And this principal does an amazing job of every Friday. It's Flipgrid Friday. And this one was Furry Friend Friday. And the students were to share the furry friend that they learn with from home. For some people, that was a stuffy of some kind, a stuffed animal. And then for some of them, they got to bring their pet into the mix and share. So Furry Friend Friday allowed them to bring something from their home, and they had a little bit of a sentence frame they were supposed to give an introduction, some details, and then of course, you know, say why that furry friend was important to them. So a good speaking activity, you know, framed out for getting ready for writing and connecting, making it personal, using their home connection. So often awesome, fun way to connect and build that rapport. Of course, I hope every teacher, if you would make an assignment like this, you better be the first one on the list, right?
Absolutely. And Kim Case, friend in Texas, who does all sorts of wonderfully cool things for teachers way beyond the state as well, said that her group calls it Tales of the Week. Ah, that's so awesome. Now, I want to emphasize something Susan said, right? That this thing of being a little silly, like for the older kids as well, does that really work? Look, what you need to do is capture their attention. You don't teach them squat without capturing their attention. And one of the things you can do with a little silliness, if it fits your personality, is get them to be like, yeah, and then say the thing you need to say. Often we spend a little bit too much time talking about things that just make them go, right? Especially if we nag, right? Nagging makes kids go, and now I'm in neutral, right? And that's not what we're looking for. What we want is for them to go, huh? Wait, what? And those are the moments that really allow cool things to happen and build rapport, because they begin to be intrigued by what moment to moment happens in the group. Now that can happen via video chat as well as it can in a classroom, which is pretty cool. Now, basic important line here, right, is that when we're talking about rapport, we're talking about care. And care is one of those things that we'll just kind of keep coming back to as we look at these ideas. So let's talk about middle school. All right, let's talk about some cool middle school-ness. I decided I would start with Book Creator on this. Now, Book Creator is one of my favorite digital media creation tools, and I even have that like lined up to take a look. So So looking at Book Creator, what do you see? Well, you see like images and text and stuff, but look down here on the right. You can also record your voice directly into Book Creator. So if people are telling stories about what they're experiencing, you can imagine something related to how we deal with this pandemic, right? Where this is going to be something that's going to be in the history books for decades. And if what we do at this point is to create moments where kids really say, this is something I'm noticing, this is something that really struck me as interesting, those are powerful moments. And as we think about how students connect with each other, you can imagine a kid having that kind of moment where they talk about something like the bears in the windows in their neighborhood, but others are thinking, yeah, no, I saw that too. Matter of fact, I can't tell you how cool that was for my little sister. She was really down about like how she hadn't seen her friends in weeks, and we went out together and we went spotting bears in windows, and she just got such a big smile. And I said, hey, why don't you share this with the others in your class the next time we do Zoom or Meet or whatever it is? And she brightened up. Those kinds of moments are huge. We want these moments where people are kind of like, and you can imagine that not just for the little sister, but how many of that kid's friends will maybe look at him now and say, that's really cool. I didn't know he had a little sister. Those extra moments can be really, really powerful for how kids think of themselves. My next bit with our middle schoolers is one we talked about a lot when we did the power of voice. This is one of those episodes we did that I think, wow, this is going to be useful for years and years. I love it. The idea is that when kids are giving you their info, how does it happen? Are they just writing it down? If so, they're probably just trying to get it written. But what we want is for them to write something that's really good. Now, if they are writing something out that they know they're going to read and record and others will hear, that changes things a bit. So think about how you can get them to say, all right, here's my 30 seconds. By the way, keep it short. Too long is a bad idea. In getting these together, with SpeakPipe, this is a free tool that you don't even need an account for, right? No account needed. And so start recording, you click it, you record, you click stop, you check it, okay, process, boom. You can get like a link back that says, here's the link to this. Now, so it only lasts for 3 months on their servers. But if you do sign up for an account, you can set it up so that you've got this page looking like this piece in the lower right over here, where it says send a voice message. And then you've got your own little bank of messages. This is all in the free account. Learned this from Richard Byrne, by the way. Style points to him. And that way you can say, all right, I'm gonna download several of these. I'm gonna use it in stuff that I'm doing. The kids get to hear from each other. You might even like send the links out to groups and say, all right, here are 3 I want everybody to listen to. It's like, hey, wow, I hadn't heard from this person in a while. Those kind of moments are good. And then Haiku Favorites. So what is this about? Well, when I was thinking about kind of rapport possibilities, let's tap into kids' creativity. And if what they do is they find a way to describe something about themselves, think ahead to the fall. Maybe we'll start online. We don't know, but chances are fairly good at this point. The idea that we'll be back completely to normal in the fall, I'm not betting on it. At any rate, if we do start online, how are you going to get the kids to start knowing each other, right? Using these digital media tools, you're going to be able to make a lot of progress. And maybe you're just asking folks, all right, tell me something about stuff you love to learn. And you don't have to be the best student to do it. It might just be that you love X or Y or Z, and maybe you can tell why in a haiku. All right, that would be great. If you do it like you see it on the screen right now, you might also be teaching them how to do basic Creative Commons licensing or simple things like that, so that you're getting them used to sorting to sources and citations as they go as well. There's a lot of possibilities with this, and just keep in mind that there are things that sometimes people ask about that can be kind of challenging. So if you ask people to tell a little bit about their home, it's like not all kids want to talk about their home, right? Talk about your families. Not all kids want to talk about their families. As a language teacher, I often would ask kids to make up a family member, right? Because that kind of put everybody on the same plane. But however you put it together, give them a chance to just say a little bit of something, right? Where they can kind of craft it the way they want. Now, time for the high schoolers. All right, love the high schoolers. They're coming into their own intellectually. They're starting to kind of make connections. They're starting to say really clever things. And not that they don't at the earlier levels, they certainly do. But you really see this with our teens in ways that for me as a high school teacher, it's really exciting. You always figure out as a teacher, what is it that sings to you as a teacher? For me, man, getting to see kids, kind of hit that next level intellectually, love it. Now, so several different pieces with this. Coming back to the sources and citations idea, I created a tool a while back I called the 2-slide presentation. You might guess from the title just how many slides are in it. Truth is that when you click on this particular thing, you'll find 4. That's because there is both the template for it and some explanation. But the idea is to do something fairly simple, which is on one slide, have them find a Creative Commons licensed image or one that is legally available through licenses such as you'd find on Pexels or Unsplash or things like that, right? And then to cite it on the first slide. And on the second slide, they just say why they chose it. And you might say that seems kind of simplistic. Indeed, it does. In part because when you do activities that have students doing much more complex things as a part of a larger project, one of the first things they'll choose to ignore is citations. And we don't want them to ignore citations. And you can kind of imagine how it goes. Ooh, you didn't do your citations on this. That's 3 points lost. Kid is thinking, 3 out of 100 lost for avoiding the hassle of finding all this stuff. I'll pay. And that's not what we want. What we want them is to go, it's actually not that big a deal to cite your source. And if you're not doing, say, college level research papers, which you're not always doing, maybe you don't need to focus in on just where the semicolon goes in, say, an APA or UChicago citation. Instead, it can be something simple, which, like you see kind of in the middle here, there's a title, the person who's responsible for it, the site from which you got it. In that it's a slide, you can link back to that page. And you can even teach them about the different licenses. In this case, Creative Commons, you have to provide an attribution, common to all of those. Non-commercial, share alike, you can't change the license, and it happens to be version 2.0. If you're like, I need some help with that, stay in touch, I'll get you all kinds of materials on that. But in terms of rapport, imagine that you regularly have your students talk about some given thing that you want them to describe, and they do it within this context. By calling up cool images from elsewhere that they're learning to cite very quickly, because you can do this really quickly once you know how. Now they're kind of getting into that space of learning a really important skill going forward. Another one of my favorites, Adobe Spark, and it's free, even though it's from Adobe, which sometimes charges quite impressive prices for their products. They're good, of course, but So this free stuff that you can get from Adobe allows you to do some pretty cool things. Spark Video allows you to make videos very quickly and simply. And if you don't believe me, go to YouTube and look up Adobe Spark Video Tutorial, right? Look for some cool ones there. Richard Byrne makes some really good ones on those. BYRNE, look for him. But you're going to find that this is a tool that allows you to make a video very quickly. Once you can make videos quickly, especially when they look kind of good, which is the truth with Spark Video. I mean, they look good and it was easy. Then you can have students do all kinds of things where they're bringing together their ideas in a way to get to know each other, rapport, but also begin to think in terms of like, well, what kind of more summative assessment do I want them to do if I still have them online? And so for any given unit, you might have them create a piece where they're talking about how they got into some of the material they cover and hit those connections a lot more interestingly, things like that. And then, oh, there was one more back here. I just didn't make a slide for it. No, you may not know what they're thinking. This is actually one of the chapters in my little book on in the rapport section for how to get better as a teacher through little things. And this is just one of the healthiest pieces of advice I can give anybody. Susan talked about it before, things that they may be dealing with that we don't know. It is so easy for us as teachers to be like, well, that kid's just lazy or whatever it might be. And we don't know that kid has actually been put in charge of handling the learning for the younger sibling because the one parent in the house is having to work outside and is, there's like some serious stuff going on out there, right? And so stop, when kids are not doing what you hope, and just stop and say, hey, talk to me. Is everything going okay? Do you have time to get to this stuff? What kind of challenges are you facing? I'm curious. If I can help, I'd be happy to do so, right? If we need to make some changes to how you do it, I'm up for it. I mean, you still want them to show that they've learned the material, but giving them some choice is not going to hurt them. That's faux show. All right. There are some promising resources we're always happy to share. In this case, kind of focused in on the image stuff because there is so much powerful for what you can do with images when you're trying to convey something of yourself. And like Susan said, put yourself into this as well. If you're creating something where the kids get to know, wow, Mr. Hurley has two cats and they're kind of fun, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am happy to share my cool cats, as long as they're not, say, going nuts at the same time, but sometimes they jump up on the chair, and those are kind of cool moments. They build those moments where students are like, yeah, that's a real person, right? So we put several in there that might be useful. If you're curious about any of these, let us know. What we're doing is we talk about rapport. That's certainly the case, but it's not just that we care for them. We care for their learning when we care for them. That whole idea that they begin to think, this is a teacher that I like. I don't want to let down in what I do. And we're most creative and most ready to respond to these things in a good way when we're caring for ourselves. So make sure you're doing all the things you need to do in terms of getting some sleep and eating right, and getting a little exercise and things like that. So I'll wind down, and then we'll get to more fun, which is often hanging out with all of the cool people who join us for these webinars. And if you're watching it as a recording, we're glad you did, but join like one of these future ones so that you can kind of be in a space of like, hey, what kind of conversations happen afterward? We love to do that stuff. Sign up for my newsletter for some of the word that comes out, and then all of the freebies that I pass along. Next week at this time, we'll be doing activities across grade levels, engaging science lessons. And we intend to have like a cool team of folks ready to share some fun stuff with you. Already getting some RSVPs on that front. We're excited about it. You can find more about me via my writing at the Inspire Improvement blog, Inspiring Improvement blog that I write. I'll get that link to you as a part of the links that we share with this. I've written books on teaching and making your school better, and even using technology. That's not what I meant right there. And even using technology, thank you very much, to lead the school in a way that allows it to be a more personally and professionally satisfying place for everybody. Now, if you got questions, we are happy to jump on them. But let's wind down the basics of the recording so that we can kind of hit that stuff. And let's see, Susan, talk to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It really is great to have these conversations each week, looking at the whole picture, right? Kids are humans, right? And they're evolving constantly. And it is good to see the whole image from start to finish and seeing how those different things build on each other. I'm always, sometimes we get lost in our own little bubble, right? I teach kindergarten. That's the only thing I know. Well, why? What are we doing here? And what's the purpose in the bigger picture? Not just to make them better humans and to make them productive members of our society, but just to make sure that they're whole and healthy and well, and make sure that they have good relationships with adults. Like, we want to make sure that students can have conversations with adults and they're not intimidated to speak up their mind. We want students who can say what they feel and not be afraid that they're not going to be allowed to be heard. Let your kids be heard and let's talk to them. So I love this whole conversation. Like, it just touches my heart so much that we're looking at a whole child here. Want to find me? That's me on the internet, Tech Coach Susan. I post a lot under the hashtag K2Can2 because I really do believe in empowering our littlest learners. So many times people think, oh, they can't do that, but they can. K2 can too.
Absolutely. We'll have that link in our set of links for everybody once you get back to the page with this stuff as well. Not much to add to the coolness that Susan just laid down for everybody. You are very, very welcome to join in on the different things that we do, these different webinars. We're looking to find ways to get you inspired to see possibilities maybe that you haven't seen before. And we're interested in your feedback. Let us know what you think of the different things that we present, of the ideas we have, of the structure of the webinar even. We love learning. So if you will do that, that would just be dandy. We're also looking, by the way, for people to share some cool images, right? So our two ed tech guys, we start every one of those with a kind of a peace sign image of, like two guys, right? And if you've got a cool picture with somebody doing two, let us know, like send it to us. We'll use it in there, and thank you for that. So with that, we're going to stop the recording. Thank you very much for watching this, if you've been watching it as a recording, and we look forward to seeing you next week.